What is up? I'm Miguel Antonio, and you are listening to the Live and Create podcast. It's where I interview artists and entrepreneurs about what it means to live a great life and create great things. And before we jump into the podcast today, I'd love for you to check out my band, Run With It. Here's a clip from our song, At Least You Tried.
But what if your book has not been written? What if you have one more song left? What if you have what it takes at the bottom of the well? What if you have what's been missing? What if there's someone who needs those words, needs your melody? Dig down deep. What would the others say? They say, God damn, at least you tried. At least you tried. What would the others say? They say, God damn, at least you tried. At least you tried.
If you like what you heard, make sure you check us out at Run With It Band, at Run With It Band, everywhere you follow people at, or go to runwithitband.net. It'll take you to all the different links you want to go to, and there'll be a little button you can click for booking information. Now for today's podcast.
The Live and Create podcast.
Looking behind you, it looks like you got some passion for some plants in there.
Yeah, they've managed to stick around. It's kind of chaos back here if you can't tell, but at least it's a little bit pretty to look at.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's our lead guitarist in our band. We call him Plant Daddy because his whole apartment is just like full of plants, and it's his passion, man. He's into it. He digs it.
That's funny. One of our, I don't know if you know John McCain, he plays bass for Cat King, but he also works sound for a lot of our sessions, and we call him Gear Daddy. So it's funny. We both have
Nice.
father figures in the groups.
It's important, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, we need supervision like that.
That's amazing, man. Reading the history a bit of Flew the Coop, and realizing you guys started in like an actual like animal coop. And I'm just curious about that because, man, I've been in some animal coops and I can't imagine walking in and being like, yeah, let's record some shit in here, you know? And obviously it's grown to some really cool things. What was that like from the very beginning? You know, was it like a used animal coop that you guys just decided to clean out? What did that look like?
So the original coop was actually our co-founder, Mitch Hewlett. He's in Gemini Parks, was in Westerners, and also Mace Mouth. Plays a bunch of different bands, works sound at multiple venues around town now.
That's that real artist life right there, where we're
exactly,
just
but
everywhere.
He was living in this farmhouse in North Lawrence. Really, it was just next to a chestnut orchard and an open field, nothing else.
Okay.
And he had this old coop that was on the property. He tells me that when he first moved in there was like fur laying around. It seemed like it must have been goats or some sort of animal coop. But him and his buddy Josh cleared it all out, cleaned it up, turned it into a recording studio. And for years, that had been a spot where local and touring bands would stop by, practice, store their gear. And Mitch just has a keen eye for decorations, knickknacks, memorabilia. So there's show posters, stuffed animals, tons of vintage gear, just like floor to ceiling maximalism vibes in
Maximalism,
there. But
I
very
like that.
cozy, and a lot of, the second you walk in, you can tell like a lot of creative energy has been put into the place, and a lot of things have been made there. So that's where I entered into it. When Mitch reached out to me over Facebook, we had met after I directed a live at KJHK session when he was playing with Westerners, and he was interested in starting this series. He didn't know much about video. I didn't know much about audio, so it kind of worked out.
Nice.
There, we just brought in a bunch of videographer, editor friends of mine who also had a love for music and the local music scene, and so we just started from there, and it's gone ever since.
So it sounds like you have an army of video folks working with you to make that visual.
Yeah, it's a small for an army, but it is a pretty deep bench, and
Like
we're
a special
always
ops unit, a small little.
It's more of a SEAL Team 6 sort of situation, but we're always looking to, deepen that bench, folks who are interested in being involved. For most of the existence of the series, we haven't had any funding, so it's just been for the love of the game and documenting and supporting and contributing to the local music scene in that way. But, in recent years, we've had bits and scraps of funding come in here and there. We've been able to compensate the crew a little bit. It's nothing extravagant. No one's doing it full time, but anyone who is interested in helping out to any degree, we welcome them. We could always use the help.
Yeah, and I imagine for you, because you live in the video world itself, right? That's kind of what you brought to the game. And like, I think a lot of people don't notice, like, they see the beautiful visuals. Like, you guys have incredible visuals of what you do, but they don't realize, I think a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into the editing piece. And then to have a team in there. I've gotten hired in the past to do video work. I do not call myself a videographer. I know enough to like do some shit for like commercial things every once in a while. That's it. But just doing that, I mean, there's days I just wanted to like curl up in the corner and cry because of the details. So
that's a lot.
It gets pretty wild. I'm glad you got a huge team on that. Are you a musician as well?
I am not. I played violin in high school. John, who I mentioned earlier, has been desperately trying to get me to learn bass, and I'm picking it up very slowly.
Yeah, you're getting in there.
But other than that, no, I really got hooked on and expanding my musical repertoire and interests when I was working at the college radio station KJHK in Lawrence, and have kind of been hooked ever since. I was running the Live at KJHK series for a couple of years on the exec staff. I went off to work at Kansas City PBS in the Bridge, filming some of their sessions, and
nice.
Filming live music has always been so special to me, just because each performance is unique in and of itself, and there's no better front row seat than a camera in front of the band. You know what I mean? And through that way, we're able to share it with other people. It helps, grow the projects that the musicians are working on. It's just a way I can contribute, even though I'm not musically inclined. I feel like that's how I can kind of fit in, and that's where I found a lot of community and having a great excuse to make fun stuff with my friends. And that's always been my motto for doing it. As long as it's fun, I'm going to keep doing it. So
that's awesome. Well, and it is wild in the way the new music industry, if you will, which is kind of this dispersed industry. It seems like the music, if it doesn't have a visual somehow, it almost doesn't exist. I don't know if you have made that observation or not, but the power of video is huge. And I think not every artist gets that. Like we've tried to shoot our own music video. We ended up just like using B-roll and for like little reels and called it good, because we were like, shit, we got in over our heads on this, where the power of people who really are passionate about video and then merging it with music is huge. It's very, very huge.
It's crazy. I mean, that's when I started to really get interest in what my music taste has turned out to be now, is through music videos, like compelling visuals. And, throughout the years, you see just the weird sort of this moving in both ways, where you have a music video that costs millions of dollars to produce. Right. And then you also have reels of people just filming themselves on acoustic guitar, posting it as is on social media, and not getting just as many views. And so it's it's an interesting dichotomy, but they both share that, that fact that visuals are extremely important when it comes to getting anything seen and listened to and engaged with.
Oh yeah. And it is crazy though, because I love beautiful videos, but then there's times, like I have a friend, Cassie Joy, touring country artist, and she was talking about how they did like this. It's like 8 days of filming, invested all this money, and posted the video on TikTok. And she's like, it barely got any engagement. And then she said, we got home from a gig at like 2 a.m. and we were still drinking and decided just to do some dumbass like thing on the couch. And then that ended up being like one of her first viral videos. But there was, I think in that regard, it caught some kind of authenticity as well. And when you're living in the visuals, I'm curious about that, because I'm kind of forming it as I go. Just as we were diving into this, do you struggle sometimes as a videographer? And like, I imagine your depth of knowledge is like this high depth of knowledge. Like, how do you capture authenticity, but then like a well-produced product as well? How do you balance that out? Or is it one and the same to you?
You know, it's kind of tricky. It is sort of one and the same to me. And that's kind of why, we try to keep it as, that's where our limited resources kind of force us to maintain that authenticity a little bit, in the sense that, we don't have the funding to really justify keeping people around for 5, 6, 7 hours to get the best take. We have
pristine.
Yeah. We tell the bands, like, listen, we can run it like a live set. And if we have time, we can do a retake of one song from it, but we're not going to wait and get it. This isn't going on a record for, streaming. This is billed as a live performance, warts and all.
Yeah.
And
capturing a moment.
It's capturing a moment. So in that sense, I think that's where the authenticity will always remain. But we definitely don't want to limit ourselves to the production value at the same time. So we're always trying to level that up, but maintain that sense of, you're getting a live performance. You're seeing a band as if they were playing live in your city. And, when we get people who are not familiar with the bands or discovering it for the first time, I think I really hope that they then, get really turned on to the band and, look for the next opportunity to go see them live. That's really one of the main goals, just to put those butts in seats, I guess you could say, and so they can experience it for themselves and really find it true to like what they watch with our sessions.
That's really cool. It's cool to hear. I love talking to other folks who are like behind the scenes in the industry, and to hear y'all's passion for it, because obviously for a band, we're out there. It's like, in some ways we get the accolades, and of people being like, oh, I love that song, and connecting with it. Realizing a lot of the industry, actually most of the industry, is agents and producers and videographers and photographers, but they all have the same passion. And it's cool to hear that overflow of like, I want to see this grow and I want to help these artists. Like, to me, it kind of gives me a chill hearing it, because it's like, man, the people really do care about this. It really does matter to them. I think at least for me, I know for a lot of other like artists, out front artists, if you will, I think that's the thing that keeps spurring you on in those shitty days, in those hard days, in that regard. How did you get started in video? Like, what drew you to the actual medium?
I think really the first time I remember really being drawn towards it was in high school. I was initially really passionate about creative writing, and I was taking this course in high school. It was very relaxed, very chill, but the teacher was always very encouraging about, finding your voice, giving critique. And we would always, there was one assignment each semester that you'd take the class where you'd write pretty much a dissertation on like a video, on a music video.
Okay.
And so that started to really make me appreciate the combination of that medium. I'd always loved film and TV, and could always remember every single plot point of a television show. I was obsessed with Lost, for example. And in high school, I would literally dictate every episode of the show to my friends. I can't believe they stuck around and listened to it.
They're like, oh my God, okay, here we go. Wait, I don't even need to watch anymore. It was such a great show, though. It had me, man.
Yeah, I'm just was so compelled and interested in character development, good writing. But really in that class is where it started to sort of collide. And there was an opportunity one time to make a music video for some high school level film fest. And I made one with some of my best friends, kind of parroting The Distance by Cake. And that was just
another
so
good
fun.
choice, by the way. Another great choice.
I had just such a fun time, like conceptualizing it, editing it, directing it, and really just from beginning to end, using that creative process and producing it with my friends is like, that was it. So when I went to KU, I studied film and media, made some other great friends in that lane who had the same sort of ethos for it that I did. And once I started spending time at KJHK, that's when it really kind of locked in this specific niche for me.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, film is part storytelling, and even great music videos are. And so I love that it started from the creative writing aspect for you. That's really cool. You had said something earlier that I thought was very interesting. This idea of like limited resources, which is where a lot of artists are, right? And you guys recognize that. And so then you set these parameters, but still kick out a really cool like product, for lack of a better term, which is really cool and really, really important. I think a lot of artists, I struggle with that because I'm very black and white. Like if we can't do exactly this thing, fuck it, we're not going to do it, kind of deal. But instead of saying, no, here's the parameters. I went through a similar process with this podcast where I ended up stopping doing it because I kept trying to add more and more. But then I realized majority of my time is spent writing and recording music. And that's where like my bread and butter is. So, but then finally I heard someone talk about that where they're like, I had to give this thing a half a day. And that's all I could give it. And so therefore, one, I had to get more efficient at certain things. Two, I had to say no to a lot of things that I thought was cool. But because this was important to me, I put it out there. What are some of the other parameters that you feel like you put in there to ensure that it's a great medium, a great story that you're telling with the band, but also to recognize that there are limited resources of time and money at the moment?
Yeah. That's a good question. I'd say that I have pretty much a bar of the number of crew members we can have on set, because really throughout my career, I've been, even in producing like documentary television and specials for Kansas City PBS, that was my primary income for 8 years after college. Even the limited resources there, I'm oftentimes the only person on set. I'm conducting the interviews, filming, working sound, lighting it. I take it back, edit it, direct the live and studio portion of it. So
Wow.
much of that, like I instinctually, just out of necessity, just try to take on.
Right.
So it's really been a practice of, recognizing I need other people to make a quality show that I'm proud of. And it's my cat.
I see it. I saw the cat pop up. I was like,
yeah, she's gonna start meowing at me in a letter in.
We've definitely had dogs and cats like bomb the videos often. And when I first started, I was touring pretty heavy, so I did them all in person. And then of course we'd have dogs like jump on a couch like while we're interviewing, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
But I think that's the real marker of, okay, can we pull this off or not? Do we have the number of roles, camera operators, audio engineers available to make it happen, and make that call from there? Because the more you try to shave it down, try to take it on yourself, the quality of the product will suffer.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the moment where we decide whether it's a green light.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I think that is hard, like kind of balancing those things out. It sounds like you guys switching to nonprofit there. Are you guys looking to raise funds? Are you looking to do grants? What is that looking like for you guys?
Definitely looking to raise funds. So anybody out there, we have a Patreon. Yeah, we have a Patreon page. We want to promote a bunch, but we did go towards the nonprofit model because it really was at the end of the day, a service that we wanted to provide. There are for-profit models like Audio Tree in Chicago that we often looked at, but we found that the nonprofit model would qualify us for a lot of grant funding. We weren't yet at the point where the number of views, the number of subscribers on our videos really warrant businesses to market their products on our platforms. We're not at that level yet. We're getting closer and closer every time we put out a session, which is great. But having that extra incentive for businesses to sponsor any of the sessions in return for ability to donate to a nonprofit, write it off at the end of the day, just seemed like a much more practical way of keeping it going.
I like that. That's a creative approach, definitely. And you're out in Lawrence, right?
No, I'm actually in Kansas City. I've been in KC now since 2019, but I lived in Lawrence for 6 years before that.
Okay, so that's maybe I was thinking where this started in Lawrence, but it sounds like you guys are dispersing, different venues.
Yeah, in 2020, during COVID, we obviously couldn't cram into a sort of uh,
Right.
original Coop anymore. So we started to find and collaborate with other venues, like Replay Lounge was one, the White Schoolhouse in North Lawrence as well, where we could film, single artists and also distance at the same time. Around that time, Mitch was moving to Kansas City, and we moved into a house in Midtown. And from that point, started to replicate that model where we would pop up in venues around town. And that's where we really flew the coop, so to speak. And so we actually changed our name from Coop Sessions to Flew the Coop Sessions to kind of mirror that.
Nice.
as well. So,
I dig that. Well, and it's cool too I can't speak good. It's great that you're involving other businesses as well, like other venues, and it helps. I think it's a really cool way to partner with other people doing stuff in the community who believe in music as well.
yeah, it's been helpful to grow the series also. When we reach out to and connect with other venues or businesses who might not have heard of us before, they in turn share it and they reach their audience, and that brings people into what we do. And it's also just been a really unique opportunity for community building across different industries, sectors, if you will, that might not interact with live music or local music on a day-to-day basis. So I think I talk about this all the time, where I feel that KC is really special in that the majority of time when we approach places, they're extremely open to it, open to letting us use it, and don't charge us because we don't have money to rent the place. But
Right.
they're so open. There's just a spirit of being open to collaborate in and around Kansas City that I feel is unique. I'm told from friends who live elsewhere that's very hard to do in larger cities where rent is just seriously.
They're like,
making
that's
it-
cool. We'd love to help, but I need $2,000, man. Like,
Yeah, and no shame. You got to do what you got to do. But those DIY spaces where people can get away with that are decreasing every day. So these happen in Kansas City, but I do think that spirit of collaboration is still so strong that we would not be able to do what we do without that, and gotten to the point where we are without people willing to let us in and open their doors to us.
that's huge. When you think about the Kansas City, and when I say that, I kind of lump in Lawrence as well, too, like kind of area, I guess, KC area. What do you feel, what are some of the other strengths that you see of the Kansas City music scene?
That's a good question. I mean, there's just so much talent here. It's crazy, and so many in every genre you could think of. And that's what we want to highlight all the time with the diversity of acts that we bring on and genre. So I think that is, of course, the primary strength that keeps it going. And I think that spirit of camaraderie is really its other primary strength. A lot of people really putting in hours to make it what it is. Other local music supporters, think of Sean Crowley and Mana Records, Aaron Rhodes and Max Farewell,
I'll have
and
to check that out.
River McKenzie and One Mic Stan. These are people also doing it in these spaces and making it what it is. I do feel that, there's still one of the challenges, I think, with Kansas City anyway, is just how damn big it is, as well as
Just wide.
yeah, just wide. It's just a crazy sprawl.
Yeah. And we haven't put our big boy pants on when it comes to public transit either.
Not even in the slightest. And so much of that, it's rooted in the unfortunate, history of the city's legacy of redlining, racially restricted covenants, and just, that's part of why public transportation is the way it is. Don't want, the city has not historically wanted everyone to be able to get everywhere. And that's
Right.
based on race and class and all of that. And I think the music scene still kind of reflects that segregation in a lot of ways between genre and identity. And that's something that we have always wanted to bridge also, is be a place where no matter what you play, no matter what you look like, where you're from, you can find that work on Flew the Coop Sessions platforms.
Well, and I think you guys, seeing your visuals, I've been watching you guys for a few years now, following what you're up to, and you do see a great diversity in what you do. genre and just from people who are represented, which I think is a powerful testament. That's where I think it's amazing with art, where you don't even necessarily have to like take a stand about something and write a long post. You can just live it and do it. And it's just, it says like, you are welcome. It says, this is okay. This, we support you, those kind of things. And I think that's really cool. When you talk about the width, it all being spread out, obviously the public transit, all these things coming in, what are some of the other challenges that presents it, the music scene, with the kind of sprawling, Midwest, thing we got going out here?
I think there is sort of an idea of places being much further away than they are. Like people might not be willing to go all the way out to Olathe. I know I have it for
God, it's so true.
For me, I hate it.
We moved like way rural during the COVID. We moved out of the city and moved like into a rural area north of Kansas City. And like to get people to come to my house for like thing, I'm literally planning a birthday show in the city because I'm like, most of my friends just are like, dude, that's really fucking far away. It's like, it's really not, but it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, there's something to be said for the, that kind of condensing, there's another word for it, but that closeness of community, walkable communities, all that stuff where, that just naturally makes art and culture possible to thrive and support itself. And just for, far too long, the Midwest, Kansas City in particular, has not prioritized that kind of urban development. And that does, that bites us in the ass in a lot of ways. I don't think we've really come to terms with that.
I was outside Chicago for a few different summers, and just there, you're taking the trains and then you hit the L and you go into the city. It's just part of culture. It's just what you do, and you don't think about it. You're like, okay, in an hour and a half we'll be there. Like, these kind of things. And same, I have family from Brooklyn, and it's like whenever we're out there, it's just kind of the same thing. It's an hour train ride into, Manhattan, and it's just part of life, and that we don't have. And there is a power of like the closeness. We write in the River Market area is where we do our writing sessions, like all day sessions. And all day, all night kind of thing. And so there is something about, I love it because I was like, I'll walk in and go grab, some Burrito Bros, walk in and go over to Messenger Coffee, grab it. It's like everything's just right there. And being able to walk, not get in your car is kind of a cool vibe. And I get it. Like if I live down there, I won't want to go out to the suburbs to see a show either. But how do you support different venues? How do you, in different experiences, I think is a huge thing. What would you say is another opportunity that the Kansas City area music scene has to grow, to like, what's the next step for us as a collective?
That's a good question. I don't know if I really have the answer for that. I think we do have a lot of the right things in the mix right now, but just maintaining that spirit of collaboration is going to be the only way it goes forward. I think also so much of the music scene here is economically incestuous in a way. It's like everyone is paying each other, when they go to their shows, and then rent comes due, and there's not a lot of, from what I can see, there's a lot of money in Kansas City, but not a lot of it goes to sustaining this kind of stuff.
Right.
From what I can tell, but I don't know everything. I don't know the answer to that, but I think that's where areas could change. I think real investments in the music scene and the arts here, in supporting artists being able to have their basic fucking needs met. Sorry, I don't know if I cussed, but
yeah, feel free.
Your basic needs met, so they can focus on art. And that's at the end of the day, that's how it grows.
Well, and in that idea of exchanging between the artists, right? This economy that's kind of a small economy between all of us going to support each other's shows. And sometimes it's a struggle because some of us play so much, right? That we have some friends where we joke with, unless we're doing a show at the same place, like we're not going to ever see each other play.
Yeah.
you know, and which is a good thing, like, because we're all working. But kind of this thing we've been wrestling with is, like you said, there is money here. There are people who are passionate about the arts and passionate about original music. I've met them. I know them, business owners who live in like incredible, like neighborhoods, gated communities. And some of them, they'll hire we have like a party band thing. We do our original music, but also have this party band thing we can do. We get hire for private events, doing all that, these swanky ass things. But Daniel and I you know D. Cole, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like who doesn't at this point? D. Cole's everywhere, man.
Yeah, he's played every damn venue in the city, including like the stadium and everything.
Yeah, he's in every band. Yeah, it's I think at one point he was in 5 bands. We joke about having a D. Cole fest where we just have all of his bands like in one night. I think it would be a
pump him full of
blast.
coffee and just try to have
go. At the end of the night, he'll just pass out. But man, I sidetracked my. Oh yeah, so we were just talking about this concept of what does it look like to foster an environment where kind of that old Patreon, or what do they call it, where it's not patriarchal is not the word I'm looking for, but like a patron. Yes, a patron, where like a patron would hire an artist and they would be kind of their resident artist, and their purpose was to create original works, whether it be music or painting, those kind of things. It's like, how do you start that kind of culture? How do you break that into where they're not the ultra wealthy or whatever? They're not just hiring the cover bands, which is great. I make my living in a lot of ways off of that. So I'm not knocking that by any means, but I know some of these clients that there's this passion for original music as well. Like what does it look like to click into that to where suddenly they're paying 10 grand to have a original artist come in and that they did a commissioned work, in their living room?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I feel like maybe it doesn't exist now as much. I don't want to say it doesn't. Charlotte Street, for example, is a great resource and supporter of like residency programs. And one of our first grants was a rocket grant. Our first grant.
This is Charlotte Street, is what you said?
Charlotte Street Foundation, yeah.
Okay.
Based in Midtown Kansas City. They have a campus, sort of, the Volker neighborhood. But, they're very supportive. And, there are organizations that are trying to kind of enact that model with like that residency-based model. But
I think Skippy, do you know Skippy?
Yes. Yeah, I met him.
I think, didn't he have one of those?
I think so. I know Stefan also.
Yes. Okay.
Who we've had on, but yeah, I think at large maybe we've gotten away from that because we're just inundated with content, new things to binge, engage with. That people are like, why would I? People with those kind of means, like, why would I fund that sort of thing when I can just throw on Netflix or scroll Instagram or just watch Flew the Coop Sessions? But no, I don't know. I'm really talking about my ass. I don't know.
No, it's great. I really just was talking out of my ass too, because it's just a conversation Daniel and I have had multiple times, over Burrito Bros or whatever, when we're taking a break from writing, of really thinking of like from the meta perspective, like the big macro version of the music scene. It's like, how do you foster that? We know there's a desire. There's those inklings, but maybe that's what you're talking about. Is like, what this idea of like, how do you get them to care more than this thing? Or maybe it's just finding the 1 or 2 people who care and pouring your energy into them instead of trying to convince people, because I know there's one person I think of very specifically who has a lot of means and just extremely passionate about music. Maybe that's what I'll just do. I'm not even I won't throw his name out there right now. Maybe I'm just going to ask him. Sorry, I'm just going to reach out to him, just like, hey, what do you think? What does this look like? Like, is there an artist that you would be willing to do this for? Like, you commission a special work, it doesn't even have to be run with it. It's just, who is it? Anyways, sorry. Thanks for meandering down that hole with me on that. As far as Flew the Coop, what do you hope to see in the next year or two? What's the vision for you guys moving forward?
I think some of our primary goals are to reach a point where we have, a consistent yearly income that we can justify bringing someone on full-time, have some part-time positions, and that signals to more funders, foundations, that we are progressing, growing, have that kind of consistency. And from there, we can, just expand more, get more funding to create more sessions. We put out a new session every 2 weeks and kind of trickle out clips of it, singles from it, over those 2 weeks until the next one comes. So we take a couple weeks off, a few weeks here and there, but I think last year we put out 14 sessions. So, that just builds it. The more we can build our capacity, the more sessions that we can create, and that'd be really great. And like the 5 to 10 year plan, I really hope for Flew the Coop Sessions to become an institution, like a real resource for not only local musicians, but touring artists who want to make this part of their publicity tour, much like Audio Tree, KEXP, Tiny Desk. Like, it's just another stop that encourages tours to come to the Midwest. It's no longer considered flyover country, but really like a key stop on their tours. So I think ideally it becomes that, and we end up with a brick and mortar space where we can film touring acts, vocal acts, as well as maybe even have like a venue space. I think like an 800 cap room.
Nice.
Mitch and I have talked about this a lot, that he's identified that that's kind of a missing piece of the Kansas City live music market. It'd be so cool to be a part of that. Have like a for-profit entity on the front side of the house with the live shows, and then the back side is a studio or nonprofit entity where we can continue to film. Makes it sort of a one-stop shop for any band coming through. I think that would be so fun to realize. Also talked to Daniel actually about my dreams for a Flew the Coop Fest.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He's always trying to talk people into doing shit.
Yeah. He's great to scheme with. So, and I love scheming.
Yeah, he's got a lot of them coming out. That would be really cool to see that happen. And I was just talking yesterday with someone about potentially a permanent like podcast studio and what that would be, and the relief of an idea of having fixed cameras and a fixed set, and you can just walk in and fire everything up and go and do live switching and all that. I was like, oh my God, that'd be...
Yeah, that's what I did at Kansas City PBS. They had sort of a situation like that.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, I love what you guys are doing. I'll be trying to hit you up, just let you know, for run with it. We got new music coming out this upcoming year.
You guys are in my massive spreadsheet of bands to...
Nice. We made the spreadsheet.
And bring in the queue. It's just ever growing. So
I bet.
Thank you for the
patience. You have to get a place. I've noticed a lot of your backgrounds have like foliage as well. So Cody, our lead guitarist, will be very, very happy about that. He might even bring some of his own plants along. But, landing the podcast, we got 2 more questions based off of the title, Live and Create. So right now, how would you define living a great life?
For me, I think that just means having enough not to worry about, will I have everything I need the next day? And knowing that my friends and family have that kind of security also. We're going into a time where that is not going to be the case. And I think that's the bar. I hope we get there eventually. And I think as long as we as a community, as a KC community, have each other's backs, we'll be fine. I think that's it. Just making sure our neighbors are taken care of, our friends are taken care of, that no one is left out. So I think that's what a great life, in my opinion, looks like. We don't have to worry about that.
I love it. Yeah, things are weird right now, and there's a lot of scary things happening out there. It's interesting. A lot of texts flying throughout the day of even my family members and friends, and just trying to observe, and then at the same time trying to figure out how to just stay focused on my own goals. But I love your perspective. It's a great reminder for someone like me who spends a great deal of time right here in this studio, just writing and recording music, and sometimes getting lost in the details of like, no, you got to help lift up the community. You got to stay engaged with everyone and not just disengage because this fucking world's crazy.
Yeah.
I love it.
And I get lost in the, part of the nonprofit music, arts and culture based nonprofit is asking for money. And it's a lot of conflicting feelings about how can I ask for money right now when we're funding a genocide? You know what I mean? It's like, there's so much conflict there, but in conversations with friends, artists that we work with, when we put on live shows and bring together and like connect people, listening to music that's about expressing people's lived experiences that you don't identify with, but you connect with and actually build empathy around. That's how, in the very smallest way, it's contributing to building a world we ought to have versus the shithole we got right now. But so it's a reminder that no, this is still part of it. This is still valuable in taking care of each other.
There's a speech by Neil Gaiman, the author. I guess he's going through some controversies right now, but we'll push that aside for the moment. He had this speech that he gave years ago, and I believe it's titled like Make Great Art. And he just talks about the concept of like, as you're faced with, he was talking about personal challenges, but I keep going back to that right now where it's like, okay, I have my own personal challenges, but like, what's the answer? I need to pour myself into the work, make great art, put it out there. And then when we see all these things, like I've wrestled with, because first term of Trump, I went super keyboard warrior, was just spending every fucking day yelling at everybody basically and not seeing a lot of great return. And it's like, as this loomed, I had to wrestle with like, okay, what can I do? What kind of media do I make? What kind of art do I make? And how to keep moving forward like, when we're faced with these hard things. Keep moving forward, and make that great art. If you ever get a chance to listen to it and then cancel out whatever he's going through at the moment, it doesn't necessarily change the words he was putting out there. But well, for the last question of the podcast, right now in your life, how would you define creating great things?
That is something I think about a lot. I left my job at the station in November, so I've been back to freelancing and really committing much more time to Flew the Coop Sessions than I ever have before. So that's been a question that I ask myself a lot. And I think it's just moving towards working on things that I genuinely care about, that I genuinely find help create a world, a community, a neighborhood that like I want to see. So I'm working on projects that align with that, collaborating with people that align with that. I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to collaborate with those types of people at those organizations. Blackout is a nonprofit in town that I have worked with, thankfully, a lot. Giving Grove, Chris Good, owner of Ruby Jeans, others who care about contributing beyond what most people feel they're immediately capable of. Any work that can help sustain that and promote that. At the end of the day, I feel like I'm just holding a camera, trying to press record, pointing at the right things. Every day I feel more assured that I am facing the right direction.
That's awesome, man. And it's at the end of the day, or later in life, we look back, it's like, what did we do? And if you're following that path, I think it's something you can look back on and be like, fuck yeah, we did that shit, man.
That's the name of the game. Yes.
Well, let folks know how they can connect with you for freelance work, how they can check out Flew the Coop, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So my freelance business is Boston Visual. You can find me at Ya Boy Boston on Instagram, also bostonviz.com. You can see my work and reach out to me, but more importantly, you can find Flew the Coop Sessions at www.coop-sessions.com. Flew the Coop Sessions on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. And if you're really hoping to support, Patreon is huge. $3 a month gets you access to all of our live shows, merch giveaways, and that's the biggest part of our goal to create a sustained platform, is having those individual monthly subscribers, because grant writing is a slog, takes a lot of time. It's certainly not a guarantee. But yeah, that's where you can find us, support, follow, like all that stuff. All goes a long way. So thank you so much for having me on this.
Yeah, thanks for making the time. That was awesome.
Of course.
And I'll go ahead and
thank you for listening to the Live and Create podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe and leave a comment or a review.
The Live and Create podcast.